you say in the Wisdom Codes, a single word has the power to influence the expression of genes that regulate physical and emotional stress. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, Sarah, I mean, just think about what you just said. Think about the power of the statement that you just made. A single word, a spoken
Mm.
word, has the power to change the genetic expression of our biology. And that is a direct quote from Andrew Newberg. He's a neuroscientist. And I chose that quote to open the new book, The Wisdom Codes. The book is the result of my 40 plus year journey into these ancient and indigenous traditions. What I discovered, as different as these traditions were, that there were common through lines that bound them together. And one of those through lines is that there have always been words, patterns of words and phrases that humans have turned to in times of need for comfort, for solace, when they lose their loved ones, when they are in fear. There have always been these words, and they've been preserved as prayers, as hymns, as chants, as mantras. They're on the temple walls of Egyptian tombs. They are in the most sacred writings of the Vedas, 7,000 years before present, the Bhagavad Gita, the Buddhist texts, the indigenous, native North American wisdom, the South American wisdom. So I have cataloged these words over the years through my journeys, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. And the book was written before COVID-19 happened, before the pandemic. But I had a sense that the world was moving into a difficult time. And I said, you know, if these words have given comfort and helped people through difficult times in the past, and it worked for them, it's going to work for us. So I brought these together. I cataloged the words according to types of difficulty, according to loss, and according to fear and things like that, protection. And it's not necessarily a book you read from cover to cover, but you pick it up, and when you're having a tough time, you go to the part of the book that resonates with that tough time, and it shares the source, so you can check it out for yourself. You can go and see these original texts. I have a commentary on what they mean, and then I share in the indigenous language, if it's Native American or if it's Hebrew or Sanskrit or whatever it is, as well as the English translation of how those words can be used. Here is where the science comes in. And the reason Andrew Newberg said what he said is that the new discoveries in neuroscience are telling us that the words we use not only determine how we think, but the words determine what we are even capable of thinking about, what we are even capable of conceiving. And the reason, and I'm fascinated by this, the reason is because the words influence the way neurons wire and fire together. And I'll just take it one step further, where it gets even more interesting, is the new science, beginning in 1991, is telling us that we have neurons not only in our brain, but we have neurons in our heart. And that our heart has a neural network of about 40,000 specialized cells that think, feel, remember, and experience independently of the cranial brain. So when we hurt and when we are suffering and we try to address that solely through changing our thoughts, it may help, but we all know that there's something missing. It often is incomplete. And if we sense that incompleteness, it's because we have only addressed the hurt and the suffering in our brain. What about the neural network in our heart? And this is where the indigenous wisdom comes in, because they have always told us that the heart it's called the seat of the soul. A dear friend of mine, Gary Zukav, wrote a book called The Seat of the Soul, and he spoke of this beautifully.
Yes.
I did an experiment, Sarah, a few years ago when I was traveling through these indigenous traditions. In every culture I went to, I would ask them the question, I'd say, show me, where are you right now? And I'm hoping everyone that is listening can also see, but if you can't, I'll explain. What they would do was they would take an open palm and they'd put it right over their heart. They'd say, I'm here. They didn't say, I'm here, and touch their head or their arms or their back. It's almost universally, intuitively, we say, I'm here, because we sense that this, our heart, is the core of our being, the seat of our soul. And in the indigenous tradition, this is so beautiful. One of the mysteries in the scientific world is the human heart. It's the first organ that we develop in our bodies in the womb of our mother. And there's an instant in time, Sarah, where the heart is simply a mass of cells, motionless, static, and then something happens and the heart takes its first beat. And the mystery has been what just happened in that moment. Now, scientists will talk about ion potentials traveling across cell membranes and things like that, but the indigenous people, they have a different experience, a different explanation. They say the moment that we take that first beat in our heart, it's the moment that the soul enters our body. And the science now knows that there is an energetic essence that has not been accounted for historically in science. It can be measured electrically. We don't understand it in our culture because it hasn't been allowed to be explored in science traditionally. Certainly, there are scientists that are doing this, but you won't read this stuff in the classrooms and the textbooks of traditional universities. On the one hand, on the other hand, it goes right to the core of who we are and our existence. So the book, The Wisdom Codes, it's a long answer to a short question, but the book, The Wisdom Codes, is a collection of the words, prayers, chants, hymns, mantras that have helped our human family in the past. And the science now tells us why these words can be so powerfully effective. And once we understand the mechanism, then we know more about what to do, and the things that work will work even better, and the things that don't work, we don't have to put our energy into any longer.